Good morning, Africa, and welcome to this edition of Africa Good Morning, where we will be bringing you the latest news from across the continent and beyond. My name is Glenora Shipura, and this is Diana Master.
A very good morning to you, Africa. Glenn, do you know what day it is today?
The day before Friday?
Yes. And it's also World Health Day. So World Health Day is celebrated every year on the founding day of the World Health Organization. Established in 1950, this event has a theme each year to draw attention to a current world health issue. The WHO puts together regional, local, and international events on this day related to that theme. Local governments also tend to jump on board this bandwagon. I mean, after all, World Health means everybody. And so on this day, you may take extra steps to care for your health. Maybe consider getting a gym membership.
And sticking to it.
Exactly, and actually going to the gym, starting a diet, and maybe even starting multivitamins. Happy World Health Day to everybody. Let's take a look.
Welcome back. Here's your latest news stories. Now, former President Kampore sentenced to life in Sankara trial. Now, Burkinabe prosecutors sought a 30-year sentence for Kampore over Sankara's murder, but a Ogudagu court sentenced him to life in prison on Wednesday. Now, former President Blaise Kampore was sentenced to life in prison over Sankara's murder on Wednesday. The verdict comes 6 months after the trial of 14 accused, including Kampore, in the assassination of Burkina Faso's revered Pan-African leader. Now, prosecutors had asked the military court to find Mr. Kampore guilty in absentia of an attack on state security, concealment of a corpse, and complicity in a murder, accusing him of being the main sponsor behind the killing of Sankara and 12 of his colleagues. Now, Hyacinth Kafando, who is suspected of having led the commando that murdered Thomas Sankara and his companions, as well as Gilbert Diandre, one of the army commanders during the 1987 coup, also got life imprisonment sentence. Now, the former president was Sankara's close friend and denied any role in his death. Former President Kampore was sentenced yesterday to life in prison over Sankara's murder. The verdict comes 6 months after the trial of 14 men accused in the assassination of Burkina Faso started.
Rwanda becomes first African country to launch center dedicated to artificial intelligence. Rwanda's government launched the Center of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, saying it will work with stakeholders around the world to design and pilot new approaches to technology governance that foster innovation in an inclusive and responsible manner. Some of the projects that the C4IR is already working on are the country's artificial intelligence policy and laws on the protection of personal data and privacy. At the launch of the center last week, President Paul Kagame said the facility was the country's pride. He added that it was evidence of how far it had advanced in the fields of science and technology. The launch of this center is enabled by investments that the country has been making in science and technology. I hope the center will build on this by making the fourth industrial revolution an equalizing force and contributing solutions to some of today's most pressing challenges, said the president. Speaking at the launch, Borge Brende, president of the WEF, said that because the center was the first of its kind to be set up in Africa, it will be a pace setter. This is the first center to be formally launched in Africa.
The first one in Africa?
The first one.
Yay to Rwanda.
Yes.
In our next story, 26 explosive devices removed from a backyard. Now, last week, the National Demining Institute destroyed 26 unexploded ordnance removed from a citizen's backyard in the commune of Monakwimundo, Lunda South province. Now, according to INAD's provincial coordinator, Jose Bumba, the devices contain 2 anti-tank mines, 4 anti-personnel mines, 4 82mm mortar shells, and 23 small caliber ammunition. He added that the unexploded ordnance was found when the citizen was planning to build a bathroom. Now, the area, according to Jose Bumba, is considered to be at risk and prone to mines and lacks demining work to ensure the safety of citizens in that district. Now, INAD, which has 47 demining technicians at the provincial level, expects reinforcements in the mobilization of communities about the dangers of mines, in addition to reiterating the need to maintain the alert partnership with the authorities for the prevention of accidents.
Moving over to Angola, a minor under 13 years of age held in connection with a robbery. A 13-year-old minor is being held for trying to rob a 35-year-old citizen using a firearm, which was a pistol. The spokesman for the Luanda Provincial Command of the National Police, Superintendent Nestor Gobel, told Jornal de Angola that the crime took place around 6 p.m. on Saturday in the neighborhood of Jadimao do Petro, municipality of Quilamba. Nestor Gobel stated that it was the offended citizen herself, who is a merchant, who went to one of the police stations in that area where she filed a criminal complaint for attempted robbery using a firearm. According to Nestor Gobel, Lucia Pacienza said she met the criminal in one of the alleys of the neighborhood where, under threat of death, she intended to take over his 2 phones. Noticing that the criminal was a minor, he struck him in the arms and he dropped the pistol. Then, with the help of other passers-by, they grabbed the minor and later asked for help at the nearest police station, said Nestor Gobel. He added that the seized pistol contained 5 bullets.
Now, in our next story, over 9,000 suspects arrested in KZN for murder, rape, and other crimes in March. Now, more than 9,000 suspects were arrested in KwaZulu-Natal last month for various crimes, including murder, rape, assault, and drug-related crimes. Now, the suspects were named on numerous multidisciplinary operations by police aimed at reducing the high levels of crime in the province, particularly contact crimes. Now, these operations were conducted in all 11 districts in KZN. Now, according to police spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Ngumbile Ngwala, a total of 9,169 suspects were arrested for various crimes. Police managed to arrest 198 suspects for murder, 157 for attempted murder, 291 for robberies, 259 for rape, 2,033 for assault, 289 for burglary, and 1,568 suspects were arrested for drug-related crimes. Now, she said large quantities of drugs such as possession of heroin, cocaine, ecstasy, crystal meth, and dagga were also seized by the police. Counterfeit goods, including cigarettes, were also seized during police operations. Now, stolen property, including 205 vehicles that were stolen or robbed from their lawful owners, were recovered by police. Another 43 vehicles were seized after they were used in the commission of crimes. Now, police also seized 282 firearms during these operations. Among the firearms seized were 16 homemade firearms, 237 revolvers, 15 rifles, 9 shotguns, 5 semi-automatic firearms. A total of 2,897 rounds of ammunition were also seized during operations.
That is it for the first half of the show. After the break, we'll be coming back with more news. Stay tuned.
Got me feeling fresh.
Welcome back. Continuing with our top stories. Thousands flee fresh fighting in eastern DR Congo. Fresh fighting broke out on Wednesday in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, days after rebels had declared a unilateral ceasefire to make way for talks with the government. In the last few days, about 6,000 refugees who had returned home have fled back to neighboring Uganda. Sources say government forces are fighting to retake villages in Ruchuchu area in North Kivu province that are currently occupied by the M23 rebels. A resident of the border town of Bunagana told the BBC that they could hear heavy weapons in the distance. Regional leaders were expected to meet this week over negotiations between the government and the rebels. The M23 say that they want a peace agreement that was signed over a decade ago to be honored. The agreement provided for M23 to operate as a political party, stopping alleged discrimination of Congolese ethnic Tutsi in the armed forces and the return of refugees to their country, among other issues. Last week, 8 UN peacekeepers were killed when their helicopter was downed around Chanzu area where fighting had broken out.
Now, in our next story, Deep Slot residents shut down streets with burning tires following 4 murders. Now, Gauteng Community Safety MEC Faith Musimbuko was expected to visit Deep Slot in Johannesburg on Wednesday amid protests in the area after 4 people were murdered over the weekend. Now, residents have since shut down streets with burning tires. According to National Police spokesperson Brigadier Brenda Murudili, Deep Slot residents were concerned about the increase in murders in the area since December 2021. She said they also wanted more police visibility and law enforcement to step in. Now, Musimbuku will visit the Deep Slot police station to obtain detailed information about the people who were murdered over the weekend, as well as to speak to the community about their concerns. According to a resident who preferred to remain anonymous, the protest started on Tuesday at around 9 p.m. when cars were stopped and tires set alight. When I tried to catch a taxi this morning, I saw some tires that were still burning. This could only mean that the unrest went on until the morning. Extension 7 and Extension 5 are worse. There is a total shutdown. It's even impossible to get through, she said.
Moving over to Malawi, police officers pounce on street kids terrorizing Malawi. Blantyre Police has announced it will not shield any street kidding barbaric acts that have resulted to a spate of chaos and attacks since January this year. Blantyre Police Station Public Relations Officer Sub-Inspector Peter Mchiza sounded the warning on Monday in an interview with Malawi News Agency. No single street kid or street father shall be spared as they bring in unnecessary torture and miseries, he said. He was, however, quick to point out that not all attacks are perpetrated or orchestrated by street kids. Mchiza cited that the most recent incident where a Malawi University of Business and Applied Sciences lecturer was attacked just last Saturday along Chitawira-Mubas shortcut route. In this case, the perpetrators were not street kids. Upon thorough interrogations, according to Mchiza, he said everybody should get fully involved in policing barbarism and report any suspicious behavior to law enforcers or stakeholders.
In our next story, Mozambican NGO demands information on funds from international partners. Now, Mozambican non-governmental organization, the Center for Public Integrity Centro de Integridade Pública, yesterday demanded that the government prepare and publish a balance sheet report on the use of funds allocated by partners to tackle COVID-19 in Mozambique. Now, the Ministry of Economy and Finance must prepare and publish the balance report in the use of COVID-19 funds, presenting detailed information on the amounts disbursed and their execution rates, a note distributed by the organization. Now, at issue is a request for a total of $700 million presented by the Mozambican government to international partners on March 23, 2020, an amount which will serve to cover the fiscal deficit caused by the pandemic in the 2020 state budget, as well as to finance the fight against the disease and support the poorest. Now, according to the CIP, which cites a report from the Ministry of Economy and Finance, Mozambique had by January 2021 received 95% of the requested amount, and according to the NGO, had spent 55% of the funds received, at least according to documents made available by the Mozambican executive. Now, the NGO asked about the destination of the remaining fund, demanding from the government a balance sheet detailing the sectors in which the funds were applied.
Moving over to Nigeria, more than 20 million MTN Nigeria subscribers blocked from making calls. Nigerian authorities have ordered all cell phone companies to block all cell phones that are not linked to ID numbers from making outgoing voice calls. On Wednesday morning, MTN confirmed that it has complied with the directive, which affects nearly a third of its subscribers in Nigeria, or 20 million people. Nigeria is the continent's most populous nation and MTN's largest market. The mobile operator has around 68.5 million subscribers in the country, and it said that around 47 million users, approximately 67% of its subscriber base, submitted their NINs by 31 March. These compliant subscribers account for 76% of its 1.7 trillion naira, which is around 59 billion rand, service revenue for the 2021 financial year. The company said it supports the government's drive and is trying to get more subscribers on board with 4,200 points of enrollment across the country. In November, MTN announced that it planned to sell shares in its Nigeria unit worth about 101 billion naira, which is around 3.5 billion rand, as part of a plan to dispose of assets and pay on debt.
In our next story, we zoom in on the plight of the turtle population in the Democratic Republic of Congo. More on this right after the break.
Welcome back. Now, we know conflict between nature and human development is an age-old conundrum, a struggle which is probably as old as modern man. In today's insert, we zoom in on the plight of the turtle population in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The following story was published by the Reuters news agency this week. Let's take a look.
Each year, Christian Ndombe and other park rangers scour the beaches of Democratic Republic of Congo's vanishing coastline for turtle nests, bringing their eggs to a hatching center where they are incubated for 8 weeks. Rising sea levels and erosion have consumed almost a quarter of the turtles' nesting grounds, the rangers estimate.
J'aime souvent quand les bébés sortent de leur nid, ça me fait du grand plaisir.
Now, a new concern is emerging in the form of a port which the government says will bring jobs and lower the cost of imports, but that rangers worry will further endanger these amphibious creatures.
Donc, avec cette méthode, ça augmente la nombre de tortues sur la plage. Nous aussi, nous aurons voir, comme ailleurs dans des autres pays, dans les années qui viennent, on pourra même constater que nos bébés tortues que nous avons relâchés aujourd'hui, elles doivent revenir encore dès qu'il sera à l'âge adulte pour pondre leurs œufs sur notre plage.
Eco-rangers release the turtles on the beach from where they will find their way into their aquatic habitat.
Souvent, l'érosion, ça diminue la côte. Donc, nous avons vraiment beaucoup de menaces par rapport à l'érosion et aussi les gens, surtout les pêcheurs. Les pêcheurs cherchent beaucoup les tortues.
Rangers worry the construction of a new port on the Banana Peninsula will further constrict the dry, sandy spaces above the tide line where turtles dig their nests. This project was launched by President Felix Tshisekedi on January the 31st, on a sandy spit a few kilometers down the coast, where the vast Congo River spews into the Atlantic Ocean. Tshisekedi laid the foundation stone for this $1.2 billion deepwater port. On completion in 2025, Banana Port will be able to handle almost 500,000 containers per year, according to the project's developer, Dubai's port giant DP World.
Banana Port will be a world-class, modern and efficient facility that will become a strong driver of economic growth and development. It will bring increased prosperity and a brighter future for the communities in the Congo Central Province and the country.
Congo's main port at Matadi is not deep enough to handle large vessels, and a feasibility study shows savings of up to 21% can be achieved at Banana. However, the Congolese Institute for Nature Conservation says its experts were not properly consulted.
As far as I know, there is no study about environmental and social impact. We need to see these studies. Until now, we don't have them. And about this kind of project of very big infrastructure, what is very important at the very beginning of the project is to implement inside the promoter of the project a special unit that will follow the environmental and social indicators. This is very important. And as far as I know, in the project of the port in Banana, until now this unit doesn't exist.
Banana Port will be built on the fringe of Congo's Mangrove Marine Park, a nature reserve containing a variety of vulnerable or endangered plant and animal species. The platform to protect whistleblowers in Africa says the construction project will almost certainly damage the area's unique biodiversity in an irreparable way.
Le port est censé être construit à côté d'un parc naturel, d'une forêt de mangroves qui est extrêmement importante. Les mangroves sont importants parce qu'ils permettent de stopper les inondations. Dans une période où les eaux montent rapidement, malheureusement, on ne sait pas quel effet aurait cette disparition des forêts de mangroves sur les inondations qui pourraient toucher la côte atlantique congolaise. Deuxièmement, c'est une région qui a une biodiversité unique d'après le gouvernement congolais. Il se pourrait donc, et c'est malheureusement probable, que cette construction heurte cette biodiversité de manière qui soit irréparable.
DP World and the government of Congo did not respond to repeated requests for comment.
Welcome back. We now cross over to Zimbabwe, speaking to Talent Gore. Good morning, Talent.
Good morning. How are you doing in the studio?
We're all good, man.
Now, I understand that the Finance and Economic Development Minister, Mthuli Ncube, was grilled by Parliament over the country's preference of Chinese COVID-19 vaccines over a wide variety of approved jabs. Can you tell us more?
Finance and Economic Development Minister Professor Mthuli Ncube was grilled by Parliament over the country's preference of Chinese COVID-19 vaccines over a wide variety of approved jabs, which resulted in 132 million United States dollars being spent on their procurement. Professor Ncube appeared before the parliamentary portfolio on budget and finance to speak on transparency and accountability in the procurement of COVID-19 vaccines since the pandemic hit the country in 2020. Professor Ncube, however, failed to explain the huge amount of money used in the procurement of vaccines, given that the country had over 12 million donated doses. So most of the doses that Zimbabwe actually has were donated, but the Minister of Finance failed to account for the 132 million which they claimed that was used for the procurement of vaccines. In July last year, Zimbabwe approved the use of single-shot American Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine for emergency use, but refused to accept a donation of the vaccine from the United States of America. So the professor was also grilled over this issue, whereby apparently they are accepting other donations from other countries. They are accepting donations from China, from Russia, from India, but apparently they refuse to accept a donation of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine from United States. So now the parliament was saying, why are you choosing to accept other donations from other countries and refusing to accept the Johnson & Johnson's, which you say that it's allowed to be used in Zimbabwe, but currently we do not have it, and why is it not being in use? So,
Interesting indeed.
so yeah, he denied any allegations of favoritism, and they said that they will actually accept any donations which comes their way, but they have apparently denied a donation from the United States of America.
Oh, wow, we'll be keeping in touch to hear more on this. Now, the University of Zimbabwe students protested against the fees hike. Can you tell us more on this?
University of Zimbabwe students on Monday protested against the recent fees hike, saying that they were exorbitant. The university raised its fees from about 40,870 Zimbabwean dollars to 51,088, with some students in some faculties now expected to pay 60,000 Zimbabwean dollars. So University of Zimbabwe Students Association president said, cognizant of the prevailing economic conditions in the country and the average income of any average parent, these fees are astronomical and they can't afford to pay these fees. They say that they urge the government to subsidize tertiary education to cover part of the expenses that are needed at universities, since they cite financial constraints every time the students ask for student grants. So the government always cites financial constraints, and they say that they can't give university students student grants. The student grants were there before in the 90s, but they have since been scrapped out, and students then no longer get student grants. So the students are saying that if they can't do that, they should at least subsidize, or they shouldn't hike their fees, because most of the people, the parents, the guidance, and the students, they can't afford tertiary education as it stands in the country right now. So we're going to be monitoring the situation to find out if the university is actually going to heed to the needs of the students. So we're going to be monitoring the situation on the ground.
We'll be looking forward to that. I understand in your next story, which is a little bit of a tricky situation, women's rights groups are urging the government to cement the rights of pregnant girls in schools, which is stemmed to rising cases of stigmatization. Can you tell us more?
So women rights groups in Zimbabwe, they are actually urging the government to cement the rights of pregnant girls in schools. Zimbabwe has recorded a sharp increase in teen pregnancies and child marriages during the COVID-19 lockdowns, with nearly 5,000 girls falling pregnant and 1,174 cases of child marriages being recorded between January and February 5 in 2021. So All Women Advocacy Director Helza Zemura said that efforts should be made to ensure that pregnant girls were given a chance to be integrated into the school systems. This has further seen more girls being unable to attend schools as they are stigmatized by both the teachers and their peers. So in 2020, President Emerson Mnangagwa signed amendments to the Education Act that banned schools from stigmatizing and prohibiting pregnant girls from attending classes. The amendment also bars teachers from disciplining students by caning or allowing students to continue attending class even if they owe fees. So women rights groups in Zimbabwe, they are saying that pregnant school children, they are being stigmatized in schools. They are not being allowed into classes. Whereas the president in 2020, he signed an amendment bill which allowed pregnant school children to be allowed into classes. But rather, that is not what is on the ground. Teachers and other school children, they are actually stigmatizing those who are pregnant, which then prompts them not to go to school because they will be afraid of what will happen to them in classes, and they'll be afraid of how the teachers and some of their peers will actually look at them in classes. So there's an ongoing exercise whereby women's groups, they are urging the government to make sure that teen pregnancies or those teenagers who are pregnant, they are not stigmatized in schools and even in communities.
We will be listening for an update on this. Thank you, Talent, for bringing us the news on the ground in Zimbabwe.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
Now, are you going to need your coat? Are you going to need your umbrella? Let's take a look at the weather.
Have you received a loan from NSFAF? NSFAF loan is the same as any other loan. It must be paid and settled. NSFAF has a set of guidelines on how you can repay your loan and become debt-free. Therefore, it is important that you, a former beneficiary and a responsible Namibian, show your patriotism by helping pay back your loan and thus helping NSFAF become a revolving fund for the benefit of future potential students. By failing to pay back your NSFAF loan, you risk being blacklisted or having a court order against you. So arrange with the fund to pay back your loan today. For more information on how you can repay your loan, visit our website at www.nasfaf.na or visit our Facebook page or Twitter. Do the right thing and hashtag #paybackthemoney.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Now, in our next video, the United Nations adopted the Convention on the Prevention of Genocide in 1948. Its historical origins and provisions, as well as the failures to prevent genocide in recent decades, illuminate the challenges facing the world today. In the face of prevailing the risk, the United Nations Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide, Adam Ding, calls for all people to take a stand against this crime. Let's take a look at this video.
It will be recalled that in December 1946, the General Assembly, by unanimous vote, affirmed that genocide is a crime under international law, which the civilized world condemns, and for the commission of which principals and accomplices are punishable.
History is filled with tragic chapters of hatred and persecution that have led to mass violence against persecuted minorities. That is why the world must be ever alert to the warning signs of genocide and act quickly and early to avert it.
I do not wish to repeat what's already been said here. My aim today is to share our story in the hope of speaking to the failures in Srebrenica, the lessons to be learned, and our ongoing commitment to honor genocide victims and survivors.
How did we get there? How do we get to the point where an entire nation is chanting, "We will exterminate you"? It was a collective failure, but I think we have a chance for a collective response in a positive way to change what has happened.
After the Holocaust, the world seemed eager to find a more cooperative path. The founding of the United Nations was an expression of that moment. The UN Charter, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the Genocide Convention enshrined the commitment to equality and human rights. And humankind dared to believe that tribal identities would diminish in importance. We were wrong.
Our commitment to prevent another Rwanda or another Srebrenica is an attempt to ensure that collectively we can create a society that is at peace and a society that can live with its conscience.
The United Nations and the principles that it stands gives us hope that we could do things together in a peaceful way and allow the world to finally put these holocausts behind us.
Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning and welcome back. We now tackle our economic news stories. Now, Madagascar freezes the price of essential products. In response to the soaring prices of certain commodities, the Malagasy government has now frozen the prices of several essential products such as sugar, flour, rice, oil, gas, and cement. Now, the products mostly imported will now be available at lower rates in order to curb the price hike. The COVID crisis and now the war in Ukraine pose great difficulties for transit workers. The price of fuel, but also of basic necessities, are soaring on the stock market. Now, the Foods and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations estimates that this inflation is only just beginning. It believes that soaring energy costs and therefore maritime freight costs will cause the cost of food products to soar.
Moving over to Tanzania to start helium production in 2025. Tanzania will start actual helium production in 2025 if all goes according to plan, as exploration continues to gain momentum in the Rukwa Basin, Lake Nyasa and Lake Eyasi. This was stated yesterday by Justin Wood, the Chief Executive Officer of Rocket Tanzania Limited, which conducts research on helium gas in the 3 areas in collaboration with researchers at the University of Dar es Salaam. This comes at a time when available data shows that unrisked prospective recoverable helium resource at Tanzania's primary helium project in Rukwa stands at 138 billion cubic feet, making this the largest known primary helium deposit in the world. In 2016, deposits estimated to be 54 BCF of helium gas were discovered in Lake Rukwa and was said to have potential to alleviate global shortages of the crucial gas that is used in medical diagnosis through MRI scanners. The US has so far been the world's leading helium supplier, with approximately 60% share of global supply in 2015, followed by Qatar with 24%. However, at 54.2 billion standard cubic feet discovered in Tanzania, the country is said to be the largest supplier, according to experts.
Now, Kenya private sector activity falls in March. Kenyan private sector activity slowed down in March, undermined by rising input costs that were driven up partly by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The S&P Global Kenya Purchasing Managers Index fell to 50.5 in March from 52.9 a month earlier. The 50.0 market separates growth from a contraction in activity. Now, the slowdown was driven by rising inflation, which resulted in subdued demand growth by consumers and a contraction in output by producers, said Kuria Kamau, fixed income and currency strategist at Stanbic Bank. Now, input prices rose at the fastest rate in 8 years, driven by higher taxes and the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which has increased fuel, food and fertilizer raw material costs. Now, inflation rose to 5.56% year-on-year in March from 5.08% a month earlier. Data from the Statistics Office showed.
Moving over to Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe interest rate at all-time high as Russia-Ukraine war forces policy measures. Zimbabwe's central bank says it has raised its main policy rate from 60% to a record 80% in an attempt to contain inflation. The interest rate is currently the highest in the world and at an all-time record for the Southern African country, according to the financial agency Bloomberg. The country's runaway inflation, fueled by the war in Ukraine and soaring commodity prices, reached 72.7% in March, up from 66.11% a month earlier. In a statement on Monday, the Southern African nation's central bank said rising oil, gas and fertilizer prices were inevitably having a negative impact on production costs and destabilizing the foreign exchange market. Zimbabwe's economy has been in deep crisis for more than 20 years, with international donors withdrawing because of unsustainable debt. The rise in the price of basic commodities has recently been aggravated by the conflict in Ukraine, while Russia is the country's main supplier of wheat. Now we'll take a look at your economic indicators.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Now, for all you sports lovers, here's the sports news brought to you by Ari Hohat.
Good day, everyone. International sports news, and we start off with soccer news. And it was two quarterfinal games that was played in the Champions League. Two British teams that was in action, and it's the first one. It was Manchester City that hosted Atletico Madrid, and it was a tight game. In the end, it was Manchester City that won by 1-0. The goal only scored in the 70th minute by Kevin De Bruyne, but an important win for Manchester City. They now travel on the 13th of April. That's next week, Wednesday. They travel to Spain to play against Atletico Madrid, an away game in the second leg of the quarterfinals. Other game that was played is Liverpool that at an away game they had to travel to Benfica, and it was Liverpool that came out winners by 3-1, leading 2-0 at halftime, and goals scored there by Konate and by Mane and also by Diaz. So three very important away goals for Liverpool. They also host Benfica again next week Wednesday in the second round of the quarterfinals. That will be at Anfield next week Wednesday. Now we continue with golf news, and it's one of the big majors that's happening this week. It is the US Masters that is in Augusta in Georgia. Big news on the tournament continues to be Tiger Woods that's playing in the tournament. His first action since his motorcar accident last year. So he's making his comeback in a major. He's of course a 5-time winner at the Masters. News from the tournament that he did confirm that he's going to tee off on Thursday. He's in the same group as South African Louis Oosthuizen and also Jochen Niemann of Chile, and they will tee off. They've got an early start on Thursday, and on Friday they've got a late tee off time. Other news from the tournament is that defending champion Hideki Matsuyama, he withdrew from the Texas Open because of injury after the second round, but he did confirm that he will play in the Masters. He will defend his title, and he's playing with Justin Thomas and also with the US amateur winner, that is James Plott. Two other three balls I can mention, the last two three balls of the first day on Thursday. Those are 6 strong players that's playing together there in the first three ball. It will be Jordan Spieth, also defending champion, playing with Victor Hovland and also with Xander Schauffele. And then the last three ball of the day on Thursday will be Matt Fitzpatrick from England, and also will be Brooks Koepka and also Rory McIlroy from Ireland. So a strong field again in this year's Masters. All looking forward to see Tiger Woods in action. Now on to some rugby news, and it is Sale Sharks, the British club, that announced that 2 South African Springboks will be leaving the club at the end of the season, and it is Faf de Klerk, the scrum half, and he has signed to play in Japan with Hurricanes, joining up with a former coach that he played with at the Lions in South Africa, that is Johan Ackerman. And also another player is the big lock Loet de Jager, that also indicated a month or two ago that he wants to come back to South Africa because of personal reasons, to be close to his family. And indications are that he will be joining the Stormers as his family lives in Cape Town, but there's also a chance he might play for the Sharks or the Bulls as well. Then on to some cricket news, and there's a one T20 game that was played. It was just one game that is played in that series. It is Pakistan that hosted Australia in Lahore, and it is Australia that won the only T20 game. They won it by 3 wickets. Pakistan batted first. They made 162 for the loss of 8 wickets, with Babar the best batsman with 66. Then Australia made the runs with 5 balls to spare, and it was 163 for 7 the score of Australia, and it was Aaron Finch that was the best batsman, 55 runs off 45 balls. Earlier, the 3 one-day games, 50 over one-day games, it was Pakistan that won that series by 2-1. And to close off today's international sport, it is soccer news, football news. It is FIFA, the governing body of world football, that announced that Russia has dropped their appeal against their suspension from the 2022 World Cup that's going to take place in November in Qatar. Russia did appeal that suspension to the Court of Arbitration in Sport, but now FIFA did announce that Russia has now withdrawn that appeal. So that's international sport for today. Hope you have a great sport day, and we talk again tomorrow. Goodbye.
Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning. Now, in case you missed it at the start of the show, let's take a look at the highlights. Former President Kampore is sentenced to life in Sankara trial. Rwanda becomes first African country to launch center dedicated to artificial intelligence. 26 explosive devices removed from a backyard. A minor under 13 years of age held in connection with a robbery. Over 9,000 suspects arrested in KZN for murder, rape, and other crimes in March. Madagascar freezes the prices of essential products. And those have been your highlights.
And with that, we've come to the end of our show. Thank you for joining us on this lovely Thursday morning. Now, do remember that Africa Good Morning is repeated on our 1up2 website and on our DSTV channel 285 and our Gotv channel 94 between 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. every weekday. Now, if you have any comments regarding the program, do share them with us on our Twitter and Facebook pages. And if you happen to have videos or photos of happenings in your parts of Africa, do share them with us. My name is Glenora Shipura and this is Diana Master.
And until tomorrow, have a lovely day, Africa.